Hi, I'm Ann Coulter. Welcome to my Substack video with Mark DiPlacido, who I'm surprised I haven't met you, but I know why Bobby recommended you now. Worked for Ron DeSantis's presidential campaign. That's fantastic. Heritage Action Committee. You worked as an advisor at the U.S. Trade Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. Heritage, I mentioned that, and Heritage, wow, that heritage document turns out to have been fantastic. Democrats should have been worried looking at what a whirlwind of activity Trump has been, and a graduate of Yale University, which used to be a good college. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So you've written a lot about tariffs. I definitely have instincts on this, but I want you to explain it more. And I'm going to try to figure out how to work in a sex scandal or something to spice things up, but I haven't come up with it yet. Okay, why do trade deficits matter?
Sure, that's a great place to start. So thinking about trade deficits, right? Fiscal conservatives for generations of conservatives have always been worried about the budget deficit, right? We spend more than we're taking in government revenue. What the trade deficit basically means is that we're consuming about $1 trillion more than we're producing. By importing $1 trillion more than we're exporting. And so in order to pay for these goods, right, nothing comes for free. What we end up doing is purchasing these goods on credit through, selling our government bonds or corporate bonds to foreign investors, or through selling off parts of our corporations, equities, stocks. Real estate is another huge one. We saw some stories about China buying up land around our military bases a couple years ago.
Not in Florida.
Yeah. So the things that not just are static value, right, but are assets, right, that appreciate and that accrue interest over time. All of that benefit that used to go to Americans, all that wealth that used to be held by Americans is now flowing overseas for the purchase of cheap foreign goods that we're no longer producing.
Mm-hmm. No, and it really pays off in the cheap T-shirts Americans wear. I don't know
Right.
if you noticed, but during all of these fantastic, like the school board hearings where they're reading the pornography being taught to, Johnny's first blowjob to the kindergartners, I'm all on the parent side, but I kept looking at these videos and thinking, would you people wear a collared shirt? This is an adult meeting. So I would love to cut off all those cheap Chinese T-shirts. One thing that's driven me crazy about whenever I complain about how we don't manufacture anything is the response from many is just to, authoritatively say, oh, yeah, manufacturing's never coming back, which, reminds me of, oh, walls don't work. Why would manufacturing not come back? Basically, until, I don't know, Bill Clinton, we did manufacture our own stuff. Why is that an impossible fantasy on the part of people who support us making our own stuff?
Right. Well, there's a couple points I'd make off of that. First, we saw a number of arguments when all of these free trade deals were being passed in the 90s, basically, that we were only going to lose low value manufacturing, that it was just going to be these T-shirts and sneakers and other low value goods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, what we saw is we used to have a $40 billion surplus in advanced technology manufacturing. That's now a $300 billion deficit. So we haven't just lost goods manufacturing at the low end of the scale. It's across the board, right? We don't make ships anymore. We don't make semiconductors. We don't make pharmaceutical inputs, drones, like the technologies that are going to define the future. We're basically losing all of them. But I think instinctive in that argument is this sort of like luxury class, right, that you probably point to, that don't have any concept of where anything that they consume on a daily basis comes from, right? They just push a button and assume that it comes out of nowhere. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd make an argument that our basic needs as human beings don't fundamentally change, right? Like we have this digital world now that's mapped on top of the physical world, but we still need shelter, we still need food, we still need defense. We still need basic goods that get us through the day: automobiles, planes, ships, and simply outsourcing those to, especially in the case of China, like a foreign adversary, is not a sustainable policy to have.
Mm-hmm.
one more thing I would add is you can't have towns where everybody cuts each other's hair, right? Like
Yes.
services only go so far. You have to trade physical goods with other places to get revenue coming into your country. And there's a multiplier effect that manufacturing has on services, right? The basic process of getting your haircut hasn't changed in the last 2,000 years, right? How much more, maybe our products have gotten better, but the price doesn't rise from $5 to, 60 if you're in DC because of advances in barbering technologies, right? It rises because the overall value added to our economy in sectors like manufacturing bring up the costs, bring up the earning potential for everybody in the economy. So there's a lot of spillover effects for manufacturing that benefit the wider economy,
Oh, that's a really great
even if
point.
it's a smaller portion of the overall economy.
Yeah, that had not occurred to me. That's a great point. Thank you. It does seem like we're becoming a country where we just sell Gap sweaters to one another, and that doesn't seem healthy. So you were probably, what, in kindergarten, if you were even born, when Ross Perot ran for president. He was totally right, wasn't he?
As far as I've encountered his thought, certainly on these issues, yeah, I was born in '93, so it was probably, yeah, I guess a year after he ran, right?
Yeah, I guess that's right. I have a surprising number of friends who voted for Perot for that reason. And at the time, I was kind of mad at them. I mean, I wasn't a mature adult either, but I was just, Democrats, Republicans, binary choice. Trump raises 3 points on his tariffs. One is what we're talking about, bringing manufacturing back. The other one is to get money into the Treasury, and the other one is to punish countries. He claims fentanyl is coming across from Canada, which I got to say I'm slightly dubious of. But if he wants to use that as a reason, fine by me. And wants to punish, I guess, China for, well, all sorts of things. So retaliation, money to the Treasury, and having Americans make stuff again. Could you rank those and tell me if they're all true?
Sure. I think I guess the three priorities we would have, right, that sort of map over those, I think, would be first just balance in general, because that overall $1 trillion imbalance is what drives this hollowing out of these industries, our ability to make things, and also like a whole band of jobs in that middle income portion for the population that really swung to Reagan and then swung again to Trump, right? Men who want to have a household and to raise a family and be able to support it and have pride and have a stake in their economy and take care of their communities, right? Manufacturing, getting those sets of jobs back in the country is definitely a major priority. Second is I think a broader conception of burden, we would say owning, not just sharing. So a lot of this trade paradigm, like the first wave of it came out of World War II, when Europe was completely decimated. Most of the world was completely decimated. And America was sort of in a great position to help rebuild, and that's why it lowered a lot of its trade barriers and opened up its economy to so much of this trade, so that our allies could benefit, and we could also wall off the productive economy from the Soviet Union. Right. Once the Soviet Union fell, though, that sort of realist take on the desirability of free trade became calcified into this like religious view of inviolable low tariffs and completely open markets. And aside from that, also we have NATO, right, which Vice President Vance has spoken pretty extensively about, where these countries just think they can put a few, less than 2% of spending up to pay for defense, and we're going to pay them civilizational welfare for indefinitely. We can't do that anymore. And so trade and these defense commitments, I think, are coming together. I think China is sort of the key third point there, because they are driving a lot of this imbalance, right? It's America basically just opens up our markets, both on the good side and on the investment side. And so our laws and our economy come to mirror the distortions that these other countries like China pursue. And when China suppresses its consumption, which It does, and it's not just tariffs, right? And this is a key point to understand as well. There's a lot of different economic policies that these surplus countries pursue that drive up that deficit. They manipulate their currency. They do industrial subsidies. They have state-owned enterprises. They have basically like no labor and environmental regulations at all. They support their exports. There's a laundry list, right? So when the administration is targeting these, it's looking across the board at the causes that drive that larger deficit, and China has to reorient its entire economy. And if these other countries, like if Europe doesn't want to get in line, right, where do you think all those goods that are currently being dumped into our country to the tune of $1 trillion deficit every year are going to flow?
You can watch complete episodes of Unsafe with Ann Coulter by subscribing to anncoulter.substack.com. That's anncoulter.substack.com. You can also listen to complete episodes for free at Ricochet.com. Choose Unsafe from the pull-down menu at the top of the page. That's Ricochet.com, your home for civil center right conversation on the web.